You know the old saying, the house always wins? But what if you could own the house itself? No, not the gambling part. I'm talking about the actual, physical buildings of the world's most famous casinos. Well, that's the simple yet incredibly powerful idea behind VICI Properties, a real estate giant that owns a massive piece of the Las Vegas Strip.
Okay, so let's just dive right into this because it sounds kind of impossible, doesn't it? How can an ordinary investor become the landlord for an icon like Caesar's Palace? You know, collecting rent checks while the casino operators deal with the high-stakes, crazy world of gaming. Well, that is exactly what VICI does, and the story of how they pulled it all off is just fascinating.
So where does a company like this even come from? Well, you might be surprised to hear it wasn't some brilliant idea cooked up in a boardroom. Nope. The story actually begins with a colossal failure. VICI Properties was literally born from the ashes of one of the biggest and most complicated bankruptcies the gaming industry has ever seen.
All right, so let's rewind the clock. Back in 2008, a huge buyout loaded Caesars Entertainment with a mountain of debt. It was just too much. By 2015, the whole thing became unsustainable, and they filed for bankruptcy with a staggering $18 billion in debt. But you know, out of that crisis came this brilliant solution. What if we separate the risky, volatile casino business from the stable, super valuable real estate? And just like that, in 2017, VICI Properties was born.
So VICI now owns the buildings, but they don't operate the casinos. So how does that relationship even work? Well, it all comes down to this really ingenious business model that gives them an incredible foundation of stability.
The secret sauce is something called a triple net lease. And just think of it like the ultimate hands-off landlord deal. The tenant, so in this case a casino operator like Caesars, they're responsible for paying not just the rent, but also the property taxes, the building insurance, and all of the maintenance costs. Everything.
And this is where you really see the genius of the model. I mean, look at this. On one side, you have the casino operator dealing with all the complicated stuff, running the games, marketing, staffing, the day-to-day ups and downs of profit and loss. And on the other side, what's VC's job? It's simple. Just collect the rent check.
And this setup gives VDCI some incredible advantages. Their income is super predictable because it's locked into these really long-term leases. We're talking 20, 30 years, sometimes more. Their own operating costs are tiny. And maybe the best part? The leases have rent increases built right in, which gives them a natural protection against inflation. It's pretty much a landlord's dream.
So we get the model. It's smart, but the real wow factor, the thing that makes your jaw drop, is what they actually own. So let's take a look at the crown jewels in VC's portfolio.
Let's just start with one of the most famous names on the entire planet. Through this model, VICI owns the actual land and buildings of the legendary Caesar's Palace. Yep, the fountains, the columns, all of it.
But they didn't stop there. Not by a long shot. In a multi-billion-dollar deal, they also bought the real estate for another Las Vegas icon, the Venetian Resort, complete with its canals and gondolas. And then came the move that truly changed the game, a merger that brought properties like the MGM Grand and Mandalay Bay into their portfolio. I mean, the scale here is just immense. They are, without a doubt, the dominant landlord on the Las Vegas Strip.
And here's the crucial point. VCI isn't just invested in gambling. They own a piece of the entire Las Vegas economic engine. Their properties are home to everything from global tourism and massive conventions to world-class restaurants and the biggest names in sports and entertainment.
This quote just nails it perfectly. VCI took the most famous saying in gambling and basically applied it to real estate. They redefined the house to mean the landlord who owns the irreplaceable property, making sure they get paid no matter how the cards fall at the tables.
So you might think VICI would be content with that initial portfolio from the Caesar spinoff, but no, not even close. They have been on an aggressive and really strategic buying spree to build a true real estate empire.
The last few years have just been monumental for them. In 2021, you had the $4 billion deal for the Venetian. Then, in 2022, came the real game changer, a massive $17.2 billion merger with MGM Growth Properties. I mean, that deal put them in a league of their own.
Now, this chart shows you why that MGM deal was so strategically brilliant. See, before the merger, VICI was heavily reliant on just one tenant, Caesars, and that's a big risk, right? But after the merger, you can see their rental income became much more balanced between two of the biggest names in gaming, Caesars and MGM. That move significantly strengthened their entire portfolio.
The strategy seems foolproof. I mean, they own iconic properties and collect rent from giants of the industry. But in investing, it's always smart to ask the question, does the house really always win? Let's take a balanced look.
So on one hand, the advantages are powerful. You've got predictable cash flow, irreplaceable assets, and that built-in inflation protection. But on the other hand, there are real risks. Even after diversifying, they still depend heavily on a few huge tenants. So if Caesars or MGM were to ever face serious financial trouble, that would definitely impact VCI. Plus, you've always got to watch out for things like changes in regulations or rising interest rates.
So that leaves us with this one final thought. In a world where people increasingly value experiences, travel, concerts, amazing meals, over just physical things, VICI has positioned itself as the owner of the premier places where those experiences happen. And so the big question is, in this new economy, is owning the where the ultimate winning hand?